the other side of the pond. And last night was the first night that we didn't play the very first night. So it kind of felt odd that I had a day off. So, I'm trying to make myself useful. And today we have some exciting guests. We have 3 guests for the hour from live from Nerdville. And, it's just one of those things where if you told me, 20 years ago when I was struggling to just have people remember my last name, that, not only count these folks as colleagues, but really good friends and people I respect tremendously, both on and off the stage. I said, it's like, to me, it's just such a wonderful feeling to see great musicianship still out there playing live, and it's all live, not tracks, and it's it's a great feeling. And our first guest, and we'll bring him out now. We've been chatting for the last couple of hours over cigars and a little Diet Coke for me, and that's what they told me. Where am I sitting? Follow the Diet Coke, son. Follow the Diet Coke. The sweet. Anyway. My first guest is a good friend of mine and one of the premier blues guitar players of a generation. And you heard him last night open up the pool deck. His name is Mr. Kenny Wayne Shepherd. We've been solving the world's problems for the last couple of hours, so we don't really have anything to talk about. So we're just going to sit here in silence.
We used up all the good stuff.
Yeah.
All the good material.
So, time is a very interesting thing. In October, on a personal note, I'm releasing an album called Blues Deluxe Volume 2, which is on the 20th anniversary of the first record that, the first record that anybody actually gave a shit about in my career, Blues Deluxe. And the fact that there's a Volume 2, considering when I did the first volume, there was no chance in hell that I was going to make it. And I go, wow, 20 years has gone by since that record, and you just released Trouble Is 25. So my question is does it feel like 25 years, or is it like a blink of an eye?
Well, you know what? In my life, I have points of reference for both. So on one hand, it's hard to believe that 25 years has gone by. It's this thing where like my body feels like I'm 46 years old, but my spirit feels a lot younger. Like I still kind of feel like I'm in my 20s, right? We can all relate, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like in my personal life, in professional life, you can list all these things that have happened in the past 25 years chronologically, and you go, yeah, all those things happened, and it took that much time for it to all happen. But my biggest point of reference is my children. My wife and I have 6 kids, and our oldest is about to be 16. And that's 16 years, man, just went by in an instant, And so I look at them and I go, yeah, time is definitely going by quick,
It really does. Because when you look at it, I learned when I turned 40 that decades in this age start going by quick. Like I turned 46 in May. Yes, you are younger than me. and I say to myself, oh my God, sorry, I'm already almost 50, and if that's 6 years, I can remember turning 40 going, that was like 5 weeks ago,
For me, it was 27. When I don't know why, but when I hit 27, I looked at my wife and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be 30. And she was like, what? And she's like 3 years younger than me, so if I was 27, she was 24 or 25, depending at the time. And she looked at me like I was crazy. But it literally, I felt it. I felt it that day. And the next thing you know, I was 30, and then 35, and then 40, and now it's like 46. And I'm like, oh my gosh. that's when the clock started ticking a lot faster for me.
It does, and the also the perspective is when you were coming up, I was coming up, Johnny Lang. It was like the young guns, the kids, and stuff like that, playing the blues, and B.B. King would call us the son and stuff like that. And now I find in my life where people in their mid-20s will come up to me and go, man, I learned how to play guitar from the Ballad of John Henry. I started when I was 8. I'm like, excuse me, you're an adult. There's no way.
No. My favorite is when some kid that's probably 21 or something, 20-something comes up and he goes, my parents are really big fans. And I'm like, I was hoping he was going to say he was a fan. I grew up listening to this shit when I was like 5 years old. My parents played it all the time. Nice to meet you, my dad's a big fan.
Yeah, my grandfather dragged me to one of your shows a couple of years ago because he's deaf and blind, and I had to go.
I had to escort him.
Yeah, I had to escort him.
I was the designated driver.
Yeah, that's.
We're converting them.
We're converting the youth slowly. That's what keeping the blues alive is all about, ladies and gentlemen. So, I think we talked about this last time, but these people weren't here. So, talk to me, because we both had a relationship with B.B. King, and I always tell people that there's that now famous photo of me when I was 12 years old with B.B. King, and my mom, who's in the audience, I think my mom or dad took that photo. It was just a candid. It wasn't an iPhone. It was like a Nikon 35 millimeter. You had to develop it at Walgreens. And it was just a shot in time. And I always tell people, I said, B.B. King was so generous with not only myself, but so many other young, up-and-coming, or, people like yourself and Johnny Lang. He's always supportive of the community. Tell me a little bit about your friendship with B.B., because you knew him 25 years just like I did.
Yeah, well, the first time I opened up for him, I was like, I know I was 15. And I was doing some shows, and the last show of that run, and this is before I had a record deal, and the last show was the day of my 16th birthday. And so this was my real personal introduction to B.B. King. So he sent some of his guys to come get me and invited me back to his dressing room, and it was after his show. And they go, Mr. King wants to speak with you. And so they brought me in, and they led me to the door, and I opened the door, and I take 2 steps in the door, and I look, and he's half naked. And he's changing out of his stage clothes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He goes, no, son, come on in, have a seat now. Yeah, you're one of the guys. Have a seat. And he sat down and proceeded to talk to me like I was one of the guys, and he gave me all kinds of advice, and that was the beginning of decades-long relationship with him that was very fatherly. And he really kind of took me under his wing like he did you and others, but, he was really like a fatherly type mentor to me. And we did so many tours together and so many shows, and he would invite me out for these personal milestones that he would have, whether, it was his 80th birthday celebration, or with the opening of the club in Times Square and things like that, and he just always kind of kept me involved. But he opened up his audience to young guys like us and helped us, introduce us to his fans and to the people who love this genre. And he was just so giving, right? But the funny thing is, I might have told this last time, but I'm literally 16 years old that day. And he's changing clothes, and he's giving me all this advice. But the one part that always stuck with me, and he was like, son, let me tell you something. You're going to meet a lot of people out here on the road, and, I'm just, the best thing I can ever tell you is that you don't go home with a woman you don't know. And I was like, yeah, I'm 16, right? And I'm like, okay. And he goes, well, let me tell you a little story. And he told me this story, and he said, he met this lady, and she was at the show, and she invited him back to her place, and she swore she wasn't married, and she had no man, and so forth and so on. So he goes, with her, and he spends the night at her place. And at some point in the night, her husband came home. And the husband comes in, and he's in her bed, and he's in his underwear, and he literally jumped out of the window, left all of his clothes behind, and he's running down the street in the middle of the night, and a policeman came up on him. And, you know, pretty suspect situation. And he explained to the guy who he was, and he told him, you know, the story, and he said the police officer was really nice and had mercy on him and took him where he needed to go. But he was like, I learned that day, never go home with a woman that you don't know. And I've always remembered that. I'm not going to tell you if I followed his advice or not.
Yeah, right. It's always good advice to the youth, you know, especially, you know, don't try to put your clothes on. Just get out. You can buy new clothes. Yeah. Don't get sentimental about the pants. Just leave.
Well, nowadays you can't do any of that stuff because it'll be on Instagram and Facebook. And
it's all about the gram. Talk to me, like, you know, I always tell people that, like, I love the fact that when I first started in this business now almost 35 years ago, it was pre-social media, and where there was a little bit of mystique left in everybody's lives. You know, it's not, you know, I would just sit and stare at record covers, and I'd sit and stare at you know, maybe my parents would rent a video from Blockbuster, you know, of some Cream concert and I always had this, you know, you never got to know the artist totally because it was not out there. Like, how do you know, we've talked privately about our love affair with social media. How do you navigate that now? Because it's kind of a necessary thing to have,
yeah.
But it's also something where you just go, man, it's like, I wish I could just play my guitar and not be the nerd with all the fucking guitars, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's a fine line, and I kind of straddle it, and I don't know how well I do at it, but I mean, I look at somebody like you, I think you're really good at it. I mean, to be honest, I feel like you're really good at engaging with the social media, and for me, it's a real chore. Like, I have to make myself, because I've always been a real kind of. Initially, I was really shy and had to get over that, you know, being on stage and having to meet people and things like that. But I've kind of always been a real private person, and so for me I just don't even think, and historically, I think some of it has kind of been a mistake. Over the years, you know, I'll be hanging out with the coolest people, and there's not a photo trail of all of it. First of all, because we didn't have cell phone cameras, you know. But it's just like, I don't think, I'm so in the experience, I'm not like, hey, let's get a picture, you know. And so it's the same thing in my life. I'm just like, I'm not programmed to think, oh, stop what you're doing, take a photo, because they might be interested in what's happening right now. But I have this mindset where I'm like, you know, I'll do something and the thought might cross my mind. I'm like, they don't care that I'm doing that. They don't care that I'm in my garage working on my car or whatever. And then I found out that they actually do. Like I was out working on like my irrigation system in my front yard. I had a broken sprinkler, and I was like, well, let's see what they think about this. And like, I got so many likes and so many comments because they were like, you're one of us. You're working on and that's what I do. Like, I spend my life at home when I'm not on the road. When I'm on the road, you know, we'll post up shows, pics from the shows, and maybe some gear stuff, or maybe some sound check stuff. But when I'm home, I'm so engaged with my kids and their schedule and my wife and trying to be a present father and all that stuff. If you guys follow me, you might notice that, you know, if I'm not on the road, I might drop off for a couple weeks just because I'm so immersed in all of that. And I've tried to keep my children out of my social media because I feel like I made the choice to put myself out there. If they want to make that choice when they're adults, they can do that, but I'm not putting my kids out there, you know? I'm not going to use them as something to get attention. But it's challenging. It's like, because it is a necessary evil. The biggest thing, and I think I certainly learned this from you and Roy, and the way you guys run your business and stuff. And it's like, I resisted social media for years, and you guys embraced it. You guys were on the front end of that stuff, and you used it as a marketing tool, a way to engage the fans directly, and it's empowering, you know. And so we got in, years after you guys, and so we've been, gradually working on that and building that up. But when you use that to engage with the fans on a direct level, it's a very powerful thing, But then, it's a bait and switch thing, because Facebook was like, come over here and be on our platform, and we'll hook you up with all your fans, and then you can engage with them. And for a while you could, but then it became so much about the money for them that now you have to pay. If I put a post out and I got 2 million people following me, it might reach like 5,000 people, and they want you to pay to reach the rest of your audience,
Yeah.
And so then it's a little bit, shiesty like that.
Yeah, and I find now that the biggest problem I have, I get in a lot of trouble on the social media because I'm Italian, and I sometimes I feed the trolls, but I find now that, listen, a stupid ass comment deserves a stupid ass answer. Anyway, like now, I find the biggest problem, and it's a daily occurrence with social media, are imposters and like super fake accounts that engage with you guys, the fans. It's not a day goes by where I don't get a message from somebody who's concerned about someone else who thinks they're in a relationship with me because a joke